Hey guys, this is Josh from ThroughMyLens.com, and this is what you can expect to see on Route 66 in Missouri.
If you've been watching all my state videos, then you're used to this by now, but my goal for this series was just to capture what the route looked like in June of 2019 and to show my dad and I's journey on Route 66. Buckle up because this is one of the longest videos in the entire series, and here's what we found on Route 66 in Missouri. As we crossed over into Missouri, some people told us we should take the excursion to Grand Falls before continuing on, so that's what we did. If you want a nature excursion in Joplin, head to Grand Falls, which is about 15 minutes south. It's only about 25 feet, but right now it's been flooding and so it's going off. While not especially tall, the waterfall does flow year-round and is about 160 feet wide. It was pretty incredible to see when we were there. Heading back to Route 66, we stopped in Webb City to see the Praying Hands roadside attraction. Sitting on top of a mountain, this 32-foot sculpture is something that you can easily see from the road. After that, it was back on the route and through the town of Joplin to Carthage, which is where we stopped at the 66 Drive-In movie theater. We just made it to the town of Carthage, and that's where we're spending the night. This is the famous Route 66 Drive-In movie theater they have here. No movies on the weekday though, so for us, that's the end of day 9. I said it was the end of the day, but I did make a stop at the historic Boots Court Motel, which is lit up with neon in Carthage. I had wanted to stay there, but it was sold out on the dates I went through. Day 10, we're heading out from Carthage and going to Springfield, Missouri. You could combine yesterday and today if you wanted to, but there's a few things we want to do in Springfield, so we're keeping it a little bit easier today. As we were leaving our hotel, the owner said we couldn't leave Carthage without seeing the Precious Moments Chapel, so we made a quick detour. When we asked what the top attraction was in the town of Carthage, they told us it's the Precious Moments Chapel, which is a free chapel dedicated to the Precious Moments characters, I guess. I'm not super familiar with that at all, but I figured someone would probably be familiar with that on the video, so it's here in Carthage if you want to check it out. The chapel ended up being a lot more impressive than I initially anticipated, and it was pretty cool to see with basically floor-to-ceiling art all around the chapel interior. Back to Route 66. On the way out of town, we made a couple more stops, first at the Phelps House just for a photo of the exterior, and then over to the Jasper County Courthouse. The Jasper County Courthouse is well worth a stop as it was built in 1894 and has a small museum inside. Just seeing the building from the outside though is really impressive. We also made another quick stop at the Boots Court Motel on the way out of town as I wanted to see it in the daylight as well. Leaving Carthage, our next stop was about 35 minutes away in the town of Spencer. Most of the drive today is through ghost towns, but definitely pull off and stop at the town of Spencer. Lots of little storefronts here that you can peek your head in, and it definitely looks like what Route 66 would have looked like. Spencer was a great little spot to explore, and I'm excited to see how this one changes over the years as it looks like they're continuing to work on it. As you drive away from Spencer, there's an old bridge that was built in the 1920s, and that's fun to see on this stretch of Route 66. 5 minutes later brought us to our favorite stop of the day, the Gay Parita Sinclair Station. This site includes a replica gas station from the 1930s with the original pumps and all sorts of memorabilia from Route 66 history. It's crazy to see all of the stuff they have here and to talk to the people running it who are really happy for us to stop and to tell us all about the history of the area. Don't forget to go out to the garage in the back and to see the old restored truck as well. On the way to Springfield, be sure to stop here. George, who runs the store, is amazing. He's got a ton of fun souvenirs and history, and it's definitely something you want to see. From here, the next 25 miles or so is relatively uneventful with some small ghost towns and a few little attractions along the route. Check out what's left of the inside of this general store. It's like a little Narnia or something in here. The overgrown general store was the coolest part of this 25 miles, so we just continued on towards Springfield to go to Fantastic Caverns. Took a break from Route 66 to go to Fantastic Caverns, which is a drive-through cave system outside of Springfield, Missouri. This is what we're gonna be doing. There's a Jeep that pulls everyone. After arriving, I grabbed a ticket for the next available tour and hopped on the back of the tram. My dad opted to stay in the lobby as he doesn't like claustrophobic things, and so he didn't want to go into the cave. After having been in the cave, I can easily say that it's not claustrophobic and it's a great 1-hour tour. On the drive-through cave tour. This cave was discovered in 1862 and it was renamed the Fantastic Caverns in 1950. It's the only cave that's entirely drive-through in the United States. The cave is about 60 degrees year-round, so it's a nice place to escape the summer heat as well. After about 45 minutes of exploring, we were heading back out the cave, and it's definitely a fun experience, especially for families on Route 66. Here is the photo of my cave tour, and you'll notice someone's missing in the back.
I'm totally good with it.
Not a fan of caves.
No, I'm fine with it.
Leaving the Fantastic Caverns, going back to Route 66, that's a really fun excursion though. After leaving the Fantastic Caverns, we drove south and headed back into the town of Springfield to see what they had to explore. Our first stop was at a chocolatier in the middle of the old downtown area. It was in a really cool old brick building and they gave you lots of different samples to try. In the same downtown area, there's also a cool old footbridge. This is the longest footbridge in the United States. It's closed for renovations right now, but if you can walk on it, you get some great views of the trains and the train tracks. Driving on, we stopped by a Steak and Shake that was built in the 1960s. While it's not the first location for that chain, it shows what it used to look like and has the old style from that time period. We made one more stop at an old theater before heading on to our hotel. So this is our room at Bass Pro World. They even left us gummy bears at check-in. And then across the street is all of the Bass Pro stuff, the store and the aquarium and the restaurant, all sorts of stuff. Taking a break from Route 66 to visit Bass Pro Shop World. That's our hotel right there, and we're heading to the aquarium. Known as the granddaddy of the outdoors, this Bass Pro Shop is insane with over 500,000 square feet of shopping. One of the main attractions here though is the aquarium, which has 1.5 million gallons of water and over 35,000 different live fish. That's what we decided to check out first. To say that this aquarium is impressive would be an extreme understatement. I've been in aquariums all over the United States and this is one of the best I've ever seen. This is the shipwreck room. Check out that aquarium. If you decide to do this, give yourself at least a few hours though, because my dad and I got here about an hour before it closed and we had to rush through it as it has over a mile of walking to see everything. Piranhas. There's even a full section with a bunch of different kinds of sharks and another one with a bunch of alligators.
That was an amazing aquarium.
There's also a wildlife exhibit that you can pay to enter, and it has over a mile of walking as well, with many animals stuffed and displayed in their natural habitats. This area shows what every type of deer looks like. This is definitely one of my favorite creatures, the narwhal. Look at those dudes. After leaving the museum, we walked around the store a little bit and then ate at one of the restaurants that they had inside. Done with the museums, done with food, back to the hotel. That is the end of day 10. Morning day 11, we are leaving our hotel and we're on our way to St. Louis. It's gonna be a long day with lots of stops, but I'm excited for it. After leaving Springfield, we drove about 35 miles to the town of Marshfield. In the town of Marshfield, be sure to stop by the courthouse. This is where Edwin Hubble was born, and you can see a replica of the Hubble telescope outside. This simple fact makes it worth the stop, as the replica Hubble telescope is pretty cool to see in person. Continuing on, we drove about 30 more minutes to the town of Lebanon and past the world's largest gift store. Once you get to the town of Lebanon, there's a library and the Route 66 museum is in the back. We basically only stopped here because they had another stamp for our passport, but the museum was pretty nice and it had a few different exhibits that you could see, plus it was free to enter, which is always a positive. Our next stop was at Rinks Market, built on the outskirts of the town in 1950. It only recently reopened in the last few years, but when we were there was a power outage, so we didn't get to go inside. Right next to Rinks Market is the Munger Hotel that's been here for over 70 years and has one of the best restored signs we'd seen for a motel on the route. Unfortunately, this kind of stuff happens where a road's out and you don't even know, so it's back to the freeway for us. Since Route 66 had been closed at that bridge, we got back on Highway 44 and made our way to Waynesville. Waynesville is still an established city today with over 4,000 residents, a courthouse, a museum, and some old historic buildings. 10 minutes later, we were at the divisive roadside attraction known as Uranus. Uranus is a fun place to explore with a general store that has shirts and all sorts of other types of memorabilia, plus a picture of the mayor and a fudge factory where you can grab some fudge. I was actually surprised by how good the fudge was, and they had a stamp for our book, plus all the puns you could possibly want. I got fudge from Uranus. Pops does not think that Uranus is funny. He's not as sophomoric as I am.
Big time.
This is the world's largest belt buckle. After exploring the roadside attraction just a little bit longer and making my dad pose for some photos, we made our way on to our next stop. This is the Devil's Elbow part of Route 66. It was known because it was super dangerous for the military to come across, and so they had to actually move the road over in like the 1930s. This area was part of the 1926 to 1943 alignment of Route 66 before it bypassed the town in order to make the route a little bit safer. We got really lucky. We were walking around the bridge and it was sunny, and then immediately when we opened the car door, it basically just started pouring rain, so. Continuing on, we made a quick stop at the Trail of Tears Memorial near the town of Jerome. It's only open a few days a week and we weren't there when it was open, so we just looked at the statues near the entrance before getting back on the highway. Our next stop brought us to the town of Rolla and the Totem Pole Trading Post, which is supposedly one of the oldest businesses still left in Missouri. I've never seen this before. It looks like a gas station, but these are actually parking spots and it doesn't sell gas. According to the man who was working there, it was established in 1933 and it was popular as a roadside attraction because it had a huge totem pole sitting on top of it. You can still see the totem pole inside of the store today. We also stopped at the Dillon House in Rolla. It was built in 1857 and served as the county's first courthouse. Then we stopped at the Mule Trading Post to see their Waving Arms Hillbilly sign. From here, Route 66 paralleled the freeway for a while before getting to one of the stops I was the most excited to see.
The next stop, we're in Fanning, Missouri at the world's largest rocking chair.
I was told while on the route that I guess this is now the second largest rocking chair, but it still looked like a pretty big rocking chair to me. Plus they have an awesome store with lots of things to purchase and a bunch of different kinds of popcorn, so we grabbed some for our drive. Proceeding onward, we made it to the town of Cuba, which has some murals to see, and the Four-Way restaurant, which used to be a Phillips 66 gas station. The Wagon Wheel Motel is the main draw in Cuba though, as it's been here for over 80 years and it's supposedly the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. We didn't get a chance to stay here, but I imagine it's a pretty cool hotel for that Route 66 vibe. Plus, it's right next to Missouri Hick Barbecue, which looked pretty fun as well. Next up was the town of Bourbon, and while I didn't see much to stop at here, it was pretty cool to see the Bourbon water towers. I imagine they get photographed pretty often.
We made it to the Meramec Caverns. This is where Jesse James' hideout was. It's an hour and 15 minutes for the tour. About to head in.
We planned the day to get here before this closed, as I was really excited to take a tour of this cave. Plus, there's signs on Route 66 for hundreds of miles in either direction advertising the Meramec Caverns. I was able to hop on a tour with only 2 other people, and my dad sat in the lobby as he didn't want to go in the cave. The tour was fantastic as it took you deep into the cave, had some really dark sections, and showed you where Jesse James hid out. As you got farther in, you got to see a lot of different water elements, which is very unique for any of the caves that I've ever been in.
Check this out, it's called a jungle.
There are also some fascinating formations in the cave, so if you like this type of thing, you definitely don't want to miss this stop. At the end of the tour, they even take you into a theater room where they project a patriotic movie onto one of the cave formations, something I never thought I would see on a cave tour.
Just finished the tour. That is so much fun. They have a theater where they play a movie on a formation, plus they have a bunch of crazy rooms. Definitely go to it. It's an awesome Route 66 experience.
After leaving the cave, we saw a few more old signs and motels before meeting up with some family and ending that day.
Morning day 12, we stayed about 30 minutes outside of St. Louis, and our first stop was at Route 66 State Park, where they have an old bridge that they're revitalizing, and then there's a park on the other side as well.
Since the old Route 66 bridge is no longer passable, you have to access both sides of the park from different exits on the freeway. We visited both, but the west side is mainly just trails and a park, and the east side features the museum. The Museum and Visitor Center is located in what used to be the Bridgehead Inn on Route 66. There are a lot of great exhibits in here with some cool neon signs, and I would recommend stopping at least for a few minutes to see this one.
Now we're heading into the city of St. Louis. We're going to see a few stops along the way and see the arch. This is Ted Drew's. It's supposed to be a great place for frozen custard that people line up for even before it's open. Fortunately, it's not open for us, but if you drive 66, check it out and let me know if it's good in the comments.
I got a chance to visit Ted Drew's a few months later with Amy, and it's a great spot for ice cream. Definitely don't miss it if it's open while you're going through the city. From there, we navigated our way to downtown St. Louis, looked forever for a place to park, and then walked over to the arch.
We made it to the St. Louis Arch. We're not actually going to go up or see much of the city today, but we wanted to at least see the arch before heading on.
I knew I was going to be back in St. Louis a month later, so I didn't explore much with my dad, but I have another video on my 21 favorite spots in the city that you can see in the description. I did want to specifically mention that if you don't want to go to downtown St. Louis, you can take an earlier alignment and you can go to the Chain of the Rocks Bridge as well. The bridge was built in 1929 and was an integral part of Route 66. It's unique because it has a 22-degree bend right in the middle. I wouldn't recommend trying to see the bridge and downtown St. Louis unless you set a half day aside for this part of the adventure though. That's it for our time in Missouri on Route 66, and next week we'll be talking about Illinois, which is the last state on the journey. Hopefully you enjoyed these videos and let me know what you think in the comments.